This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
All right, PD Williams. By the way, happy Easter, PD. We had a guest who backed out. No names, not yet at least. One guy that I can always count on showing up, and you were telling me some interesting stories about our guest coming up, and they already know it, so there's no cloak and dagger here. But I can call on him. He shows up. I call him my good friend. I don't know about you, PD, but Matt Stryker is joining us right now. Matt, what's up, my friend?
Hey guys, and yes, of course you can call PD and I good friends as well. This is a brother love kind of thing going on here.
So Pete, tell me some memories you have of Stryker, because you said you've been on many shows with him.
I'll tell you the first time I actually sat down and ate with Stryker. I want to say it was like at a Denny's, IHOP, something, somewhere on the East Coast, whatever the case. And I turned to him and I said, I like you. And I said, you remind me of Simon Diamond. Do you remember this conversation we had, Matt?
I'm smiling ear to ear right now as it all comes rushing back. I do. And I think it was at Denny's, actually. That's a great memory.
Yeah, and I just remember that because I'm like, man, because, I met Pat Kenny years prior to meeting you. And I'm like, oh, this guy is a good storyteller, all this kind of stuff. And I get along with him. And then I meet this Matt Stryker guy. And I'm like, man, I like this guy. Why do I like this guy? Not just because you're Matt Stryker, but I'm like, man, he reminds me of Pat Kenny. I'm like, this guy's awesome. And I think we hit it off ever since then.
Oh, lo and behold, Pat took me under his wing very early on. I must have adopted a lot of his mannerisms and stuff. And he and I actually connected more on our love of baseball than anything to do with wrestling. So it was a nice compliment when you told me I reminded you of old Simon Diamond.
Well, Pat Kenny, I'll tell you, what he would always do, he would give us like some sort of stick in the backstage area, like an actual stick of some sort, and he goes, here, show me your batting stance. And, we'd take it and hold it, and he'd be like, nope, that's all wrong. Like, did he ever do that to you when you guys first met?
I think that's how I might have endeared myself to him, was he quizzed me on my batting stance, and I asked him, I said, well, what do you want? Do you want the Oscar Gamble? Do you want the Julio Franco? Do you want the Don Mattingly from the other side? And he just looked at me and said, I love you, you're tremendous, you're my new favorite person, and that was it.
Oh, wow, see, I didn't even get that far. But so how do you know so much about baseball? Like, what's your background in that?
I played as a kid, and growing up, my dad and I were real close, and we always bonded over sports, especially pro wrestling. But he would come home, and he would always bring home the newspaper. After he was done reading it, he'd toss the paper to me. I'd look at it, and then he'd take it back. He'd quiz me on who's leading the league in batting average, who's leading the league in home runs, what place are the Cardinals in, who's leading them in walks and hits and things like that. So I just became enamored in, I guess, the science and math of baseball. So it lent itself to the nerd in me because, it's an ever-changing game, and it doesn't matter how big you are, how strong you are. In wrestling, you kind of, you and I have broken that mold, but you kind of had to be 6'5" and 300 pounds to even get looked at. But in baseball, you could be David Eckstein and go out there and play well just because you understand the math and science of it all.
Mark Lemke too. That's when you said. Well, I'm a tad bit older, so you say Eckstein, I think Lemke and those small shortstops. When one door opens, many more. When one door closes, many more opens for you. And we'll talk about Lucha Underground here in a little bit. But you have gotten into the fantasy baseball game. I really love watching you, at least on Twitter, brag about how you're owning FanDuel. We'll talk a little bit about that and why our fans who love fantasy or just baseball in general or FanDuel should follow you to get the maximum fantasy baseball advice they can get to help their winnings. But you have started a new podcast, owned by Anthem, which makes you and P somewhat co-workers since he's on the other side with Impact. You'll be on the other side with the Fantasy Network. Let's talk a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, so I've always been a big fantasy baseball guy, and PD can appreciate this. When you have a chance to crow and boast, I guess it's the pro wrestler in me. I want to let everybody know that every pro wrestling fantasy baseball league I've been in, I just take people's money, and I almost feel bad. I feel bad for the Tommy Dreamers and for the Mike Verners and for all these other guys that look, they have lives. I don't have a life. My life is looking at WOBA and BABIP and XFIP and calculating. So I started the Strike Zone pod. You can get it on Spotify, iTunes, and now I'm about to get in with the guys over at Fantasy. I'm taking over for the Fantasy Baseball Hour, which used to be hosted by Al Melchior. Al went on to The Athletic, so the folks at Fantasy hit me up, did a couple of things for them, and they said, all right, you're going to take over this brand, and I'm incredibly excited to do it.
So
the strike zone is what you called it, right? Great name, by the way. Great name.
Yeah, it took me about 3 seconds. Okay.
Wait.
Okay, so
hang on, Pete. Are you getting a beer in the middle of this interview?
Of course I am. I mean, I'm really like into this right now, and I have to. He's bringing up some things because I know Tommy Dreamer. He always talks about how great he is at fantasy and all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
please tell me, Matt, that you're better, you're more knowledgeable than Tommy. Please.
So let me put it to you like this: Tommy Dreamer was my best friend in WWE. That's who I would ride with. I'd ride with he and Edge. We were buddies. We were boys. Talk every day. See each other. Boys. We got into a fantasy baseball league together about, I want to say, 6 seasons ago. And the friendship has rapidly deteriorated to the point where we see each other on shows now, and it's just a nod and nothing else. Because, listen, Tommy's great, but Tommy has an incredible life and a workload. He's working on Busted Open Radio. He's doing House of Hardcore. He's doing stuff for Impact. He has 2 kids. He has a wife. He can't sit around and pine over the minutia of baseball like I do. So I blow him out of the water every year, and it eats away at his pride to the point where I've lost a friend over it. And I kind of lament that because I don't have brothers. I have 4 sisters. Tommy was my brother, and now it's just like, what's up? Hey, how you doing? And we just keep walking, and you can hear the music from the Hulk, just playing a sad walk away because I've lost my friend. But I've made a lot of money winning fantasy baseball, so there you go. So
essentially, you've made Tommy Dreamer your 5th sister.
I don't want to say that because Tommy will hear this, and depending on Tommy's mood, I mean, listen, I can out-fantasy baseball him, and I can probably outrun him, but I don't think I can out-fight him, so I'll just stop right here.
Wow. What does your fantasy, because listen, I've said this many times every time we talk, how much of a fan I am of yours from Lucha, and even now, and by the way, we'll talk about your Fight TV new gig over there.
Right. Thank you.
How are you going to take what you've learned behind the booth in WWE and all these high places and transfer it to a fantasy baseball podcast?
It's great. So the guys at XM Radio, Sirius XM, have reached out, and also I have some things cooking on the fire with MLB Network. And basically, look, wrestling is life, and Petey will tell this to you as well. You can apply lessons you've learned in wrestling anywhere you go. I mean, I used to be a school teacher, and I sat in the WWE production truck, and I've been behind the camera and in front of the camera. You learn everything, and the number one thing is, you want to put a product out that people can relate to. And Dennis, you and I were talking about this the other day. You don't want to talk over people's heads unless your angle is you're Matt Stryker, the teacher, and I'm using big words, and you hate me, and here comes John Cena to beat me up in 6 minutes in a squash. Cool. But if I'm out there trying to give information, trying to help people with their fantasy baseball, their fantasy football, I want to talk to them like I'm their best friend. And I think that goes back to what Petey was talking about when we were sitting at this Denny's. We didn't even know each other, but we just turned to each other and go, hey, we have a friend in common. We seem to like each other. Let's be cool with each other. I think that's what I want to bring to this whole entire new world.
I've listened to your podcast. And
somebody has to.
I used to be in the fantasy baseball world, and I had told you there's a certain part where, the information comes at you so fast, you either have to learn it and become it, or the industry passes you by. And I was one of those guys where I was smart enough to get out before everything passed me by. You jump in, and I'm listening to your podcast, and I don't say this about many people, but you're relatable. You sit down, and nobody wants to listen to somebody who's trying to be the smartest guy in the room, and you're not trying to be that while being that. And that's why I think people who like fantasy will like your show.
I appreciate that. And one of the things I strive to do is, and Petey, do you remember when you were on shows early on and maybe a Terry Funk or a Tracy Smothers was on the show? Wouldn't you make it a point to go watch that match?
Oh, absolutely.
right? Because you want to learn. And if, I mean, Tracy will talk to everybody, but if a Terry Funk happened to pull you aside and said, hey, kid, I saw you do this. That was real good. Maybe you should try to do this. You learned. So my goal with fantasy baseball is there's so many new terms and analytics out there that people don't know. And when I first started, I was embarrassed to ask, what is WOBA? Oh my gosh, I don't know what that is. So part of the show is to explain to people why something like, there's a metric called FIP, F-I-P, fielding independent pitching, why that can give you a better perspective on a pitcher than ERA can. And it just makes things easier for people to be able to enjoy the game and not be intimidated by all this new information. The same way guys like you and I, PD, would sit down and watch a Pat Kenny or watch a Manny Fernandez and go, wow, why did he throw a clothesline there instead of go for a cover? And then we can ask him and we can learn and we can get better.
You see, and Matt, that's what I like. You relate, and just like you said, you relate everything you've learned in wrestling to all aspects in life, including your fantasy baseball podcast. And I know you said you're a nerd. You said it. I didn't say it. You said it. You're a nerd. And I remember watching you in WWE doing your commentating. I'm like, man, this guy's a great commentator. And I know, like, in 2008, like, that was your year. You won, like, a Slammy. You won, I think, like Wrestling Observer, like, best announcer of the year. Has Impact, this is what I want to know, because I work for Impact, has Impact ever approached you for, like, working for them, like being a commentator for them?
Yeah, Scott D'Amore and I have known each other for a while, and we speak, it seems like 2 or 3 times a month. I do think that the one time the commentary thing came up, I think Josh Matthews' head exploded. So I don't know where that vehicle goes, but Scott and I have talked more about the things that I've learned how to do in production and the things I've learned how to do behind the scenes and things like that. And if I can be a benefit to Impact behind the scenes, there might be something there. I think Josh and Don do a great job, and, they have a chemistry, and I don't know how, if I would join that as a threesome or take one of those people away, how would no pun intended, impact. But Scott and I have spoken about many avenues for me to be a part of Impact. So I think that what Impact's doing is fantastic right now. It's a true breath of fresh air.
You know what? To jump in and do a little inside baseball, what you've mentioned about the production, this is P's real, what would you say now? 6th, 8th month now. He's in the truck doing production. He's an agent. He's helped writing the shows. He's really jumping into that role backstage. And now, saying that, I kind of want to step back and listen to you two talk about just a little bit of the production standpoint of what you guys have learned and who taught you.
PD, you go first.
Well, obviously, D'Amore. But the one thing, and I think Matt can attest to this, you're on the show for so long. You watch it. You learn from it. You're not even in the production truck, but you know what they're looking for. And then it makes such a simple transition from being you're in front of the camera, wrestling, to backstage, because you already know what they're looking for. I think it's a simple transition, but obviously D'Amore's taught me a lot of stuff. And let's see who else. Michael Vetter, I know he's very particular. He was our old director at Impact. He was very particular about how he shoots things, so I learned a lot from him. That's where it came from for me, Matt.
I'm incredibly fortunate to have sat in a truck in a chair behind Kevin Dunn. I'm incredibly fortunate to have sat with a headset on my head, in my ears, for 8.5 years listening to Vince McMahon. You made a great point about how things are shot. A story can be told just by a camera shot. You could take a wide shot and get a complete perspective, but if all of a sudden the announcers are talking about why a hold hurts because of the position of a wrestler's hands, and you tell camera 2, ready to take 2, and camera 2 is zooming in on Eddie Edwards' hands as he grinds a hold, now you can really tell a deeper story. Something else that I picked up, and I don't know where I got this from, the wrestling ring is a square, and a television set is essentially a wrestling ring turned on its side. So if you can take wrestlers and say, think about the flat ring, and think about how people watch stuff on a phone, on a tablet, on TV. turn the ring completely on its side. Now think about where you want to execute that big move, which rope you want to bounce off of to hit that clothesline. Think about how the viewer is going to see it, because now you're giving them a total different perspective, and they can make their stuff look more appealing, even though they're in the middle of this fight. A lot of times it's hard. If I'm going to, duck your clothesline, P, and I want to come off with a flying forearm, I can't stop and think, well, I want to hit the ropes to my left because I know the camera's there. But after a while, you just get so good at it that not only are you effective in the ring, but your matches are pretty. They look good. They're television friendly.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I know that Michael Better, the one director that we had there for, a long time when I was in Impact, he said, PD, I like shooting you because you're predictable. And I'm like, wait, I don't want to be predictable where fans are predicting where I'm going to do it. He's like, no, you're predictable in the sense that I know that I don't even have to work hard to shoot you because you know what ropes to go off of, what corner to hit, all that kind of stuff. I took that as a huge compliment. And the one thing I know Impact is lacking right now, and then I know you were fortunate enough to have it in WWE, is that, when it comes to, budget and stuff, we got rid of a lot of cameras. Like right now we have, maybe 4 or 5 cameras where WWE has, I don't even know, Matt, how many?
100. Many more than that. Yes.
So, and that's the thing. So, we're not shooting as many cameras there, but again, WWE is like always live, always live.
Right.
Impact is a lot of, we do like pay-per-views and stuff that are live every now and again. But, most of our TVs, they're shot, they're post-produced and all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit easier, but, I've learned a lot, and I just know it's really tough to shoot with the limited cameras that we have.
Yeah, on a tape show, post-production can be your best friend, or it can also be your worst enemy. It all just depends. I've sat in edit booths where they have had 10 different camera shots, all the guys back. And I've heard the executive producer go, how did we not get his face? Every time a camera swung around to try to get, wrestler X's face, he would turn, or he would go work to the crowd, or he would do his catchphrase, and all that's great. But if I can't see your face, I can't make money with you.
Now,
yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I was just going to ask him, do you watch any other products when you have some downtime and then your producer and you kind of kicks in and overrides the Matt Stryker, the fan who wants to sit down and produce and watch it? And do you, in your head, produce a show going, ooh, I don't know if I would have gone with that angle, or, man, that's a phenomenal choice, great job?
The worst thing that I ever did for my wrestling fandom was become a wrestler. I say it to my girlfriend all the time. I can't watch it anymore because a lot of times, so I work for this company called NYWC out in Long Island, and afterwards they have an after party. It's hosted by this restaurant bar, and sometimes I'll sit, and I'm not a big drinker, but I'll sit and I'll have a Pepsi, and they have all these different wrestling shows, and I'll sit with one of the ring announcers who wants to get into production. And I don't want to tear the shows apart. A lot of them are indie shows. They're 2 camera shots. It's easy to tear that down, but I don't want to be that guy that sits there and critiques everything. I just want to enjoy it. And it's very difficult for me to enjoy it now because, yes, the producer in me is there. Oh, man, they're zooming in. Oh, they should be getting a wide shot here. Announcers are talking about something that's not even going on in the ring. So what do? I put on MLB Network, and I watch 10 different baseball games, and I don't even have to think about it.
That's nice. Now, I wanted you to put on your professor hat now, and this is one of the things as a fan, which I can still say I'm a fan of the industry. I sit and I watch the evolution now of the wrestling industry, from the indies to the mid-round shows, Impact, MLW, all that stuff, to even WWE. And it seems like every day, every month, every hour, the industry is turning itself on the head and moving light years past where I'd almost say the industry moved at a snail's pace from, like 60 to early 80s. Now it moves light speed every day, every hour. How do you keep up? Do you think this is moving at such a breakneck speed that it's going to eat itself up?
It's a great question, and Petey, I'm sure that you can also speak to this. What's old is new again. I did a thing for WrestleMania weekend of content, and I was producing that entire weekend. We were holed up in a studio in Newark. We had these live interviews coming in, and a Ring of Honor wrestler named Kelly Klein came in, and she was talking about Pat O'Connor and Mildred Burke and Nick Bockwinkel, and I found myself, I was working the switcher, the guy had gone out, so I'm working the switcher, I'm calling the ins and outs, and I missed, we went to a break and I missed it because I'm just watching this girl. I fell in love. This wrestler's talking about Pat O'Connor while everyone is out there doing topes and dives and all that other stuff. This Kelly Klein's talking about grabbing a headlock and trying to make her opponent get out of it. And I think there's a place for that now, as well as topes and flipping pile drivers and all these things that guys get up after a 1 count and continue to run another spot because that's believable. But, just things like that. I mean, Petey, do you see what's old is new again?
And I do. And a lot of, I started doing the Canadian Destroyer in 2003. That was 2019 now? What's the math there? 16 years ago?
16 I mean, yeah, guys are doing it now as an opening spot. Don't you want to kill them?
Yeah, it kind of. But then it makes me want to think, like, hey, man, do I need to go out there and, just pour out my move? Like, okay, I got to have everybody kick out of my Canadian Destroyer, whatever the case may be. But, yeah, I mean, what you're absolutely right. And I think I've been saying this since the early 2000s as well, like, what's old is new. Like, things that people haven't seen before, that's new to them. Like, I mean, every single year I feel like we're hitting a new demographic, a new, person that has never watched wrestling before. And they, and in my head, I think that, their first wrestling match they're watching, I'm like, they haven't studied the past like I've studied the past. So when they see these new moves and all this, or whatever the case may be, like these O'Connor roll-ups, like, what is an O'Connor roll-up? Well, that's named after Pat O'Connor. Like, this person has never seen that before because they're 12 years old. So, I mean, yeah, it's always what's old is new. I totally agree with that.
And here's a great point that you just reminded me of. So Joe DiMaggio was running breakneck speed to shed down a foul ball, and he missed it. And going back to the dugout, one of his teammates said, "Hey, man, what are you working so hard for?" Joe DiMaggio. And he turned to the guy and he said, and it stayed with me. When I read that, I thought that was fantastic. Also, I remember when the Young Bucks were getting hot, and everyone was saying, "Oh, they throw too many super kicks. If you could throw one super kick that gets the same reaction as theirs, then God bless you. But no, they're not throwing too many super kicks. They're throwing just the right amount because people are into it and invested. And if you can educate people to be invested in an arm bar or a triple moonsault, then you're doing the right thing." I don't know what a triple moonsault is, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Everybody has their own thing. Like, I watched this one guy now. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is his name like Orange Cassidy or something like that?
Oh, he wrestles in slow motion. I've wrestled Orange plenty of times. I had a match where he doesn't drop his beer. He's great.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, like, I'm watching him do like a light, like strike exchange with Chris Daniels. I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. But one thing I don't like about wrestling now is, like, I remember wrestling for PWG, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, and it's, I don't even remember what it was, early 2000s or whatever. And the fans are just waiting for something clever to happen. And they're just waiting for that. And they're not going to cheer unless you do something clever. It feels like the wrestling world maybe has evolved into that, like how PWG was. Like, I look at this Orange Cassidy now. I'm like, this guy's not going to get over unless every single time he goes out there, he does something clever like that. And power to him if he's able to do that. But, he set that up for himself, and hopefully he can deliver all the time. But I love watching him.
And that's the thing about Orange Cassidy. Also, it takes two to tango. If he's in there with someone that just doesn't want to play ball, it's not going to work. And
Absolutely.
Also, there's going to be your purists out there that go, well, that's not wrestling. And boy, oh boy, if Dr. Death Steve Williams, rest his soul, was still alive, he wouldn't be pulling. Listen, people know wrestling is what it is. I'll stop short of that. They put down their money and they ask to be entertained. If you're going in there thinking this is something that it's not, there's other avenues out there. If you go watch Top Rank Boxing, you can go watch Final Fight Championship MMA, you can go watch UFC. But if you come to pro wrestling, then appreciate an Orange Cassidy the same way you appreciate a Zack Sabre Jr. or a P.D. Williams. That's one thing I don't like when people poo-poo the authenticity or lack thereof. Like, come on, we all know what this is. When we go to the movies and we see Captain America fly, we know he's not really flying. It's a movie, and we allow ourselves to believe that.
As we wrap this up, we got a couple more minutes here with you. I would be remiss, and I understand if you want to, be pretty neutral on this, but I got to at least bring up Lucha Underground. As fast as it rose, it feels like the death of Lucha Underground was twice as fast, hitting the wall at supersonic speeds, and it broke my heart because I was actually a big fan of that product. And the way it felt like some of the wrestlers were held hostage by the contracts.
No. See, now here's the thing. And people come up to me all the time.
Good. Yes.
Don't believe everything you read. That is not entirely the case. Two things. One, it is not dead. You watch plenty of horror movies, and just at the end, you see the killer's finger move. It's about money, and it's about finding a network, and it's about finding a home. That thing is backed by MGM and 1-3 Media. The only way it's going to die is if they want it to die. That's number one. So don't think it's dead so fast. Number two, as far as some of the wrestlers that were saying, we were held hostage, just and that, there's a lot more to those stories. And you're only getting what you read or what the wrestler says. And, listen, as far as Joey and Evilise go, 100%, they're in the right. But there's some other people where we don't know all the facts. So I like to just push back on that and say, for me, I was taught by Afa the Wild Samoan, even when you know, you don't know. So that's my take on that.
No, that you said so much without actually saying anything, and I'm glad that that you said it that way. Your experiences with it, if, like I said, for me as a fan, I enjoyed watching it, and I think it was probably some of your best work that you might have ever done because you were on it. You had, all the lines. It was amazing. How much production input did you have with that show?
It came to a point where Krista Joseph, myself, occasionally we wouldn't want him in the room, but Vampiro would make himself present in the room, and we would just talk about, just like 3 or 4 friends sitting around, hey, wouldn't it be cool if this? Hey, what if this happens? But what I learned from Jerry the King Lawler, a lot of times on wrestling shows, there's formats, run sheets. People in Hollywood may call them scripts, but they're not necessarily scripts. I don't want to know what's going to happen. I want to organically react to Pentagon Jr. chopping someone. I want to organically react to if P.D. Williams walked into the temple. I don't want to know it's coming. So I knew my ins and outs, my cues, my points. I knew some storyline stuff, but beyond that, I didn't want to know. And also, I also had to corral a 6'3", 250-pound tattooed maniac who was sitting next to me and keep him in line. So there were a lot of other things I needed to do. So there's that.
And before we do the promotion part of the show, I have to say congratulations with working with Fight TV. Can you tell us a little bit of what you'll be doing with them, or what you have done too?
Yeah, so the relationship started back at StarCast last year, and I'm looking forward to doing StarCast again this year. And by the way, how great is it what Cody, Matt, Nick, and Kenny and everybody are doing? Everyone's just so excited. It's nice, isn't it, Petey?
No, I love it, and we talk about this, and I know we had this lined up to talk about it tonight and all that kind of on the show. AEW, man, it's like people are just excited. I mean, it's something new. It's like, everybody's been watching WWE, Impact, Ring of Honor, and it just, even though those are good products, but everybody's like, it's the same old, and then AEW comes out, and then Cody, and they got Jericho, Pac, all these guys. It's just, man, I'm excited for it. So anyways, with the StarCast, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, I think what AEW is doing is great. Also, I was doing work with MLW. I thought what they're doing is great. So, my relationship with Fight starts at Starcast. I'm with Fight. I'm with Conrad, and then slowly they just started asking me to do more things in front of the camera. And then just recently at WrestleMania, they said, "Hey, could you produce and direct?" I said, "Sure. What do you need? Need a segment, 2 segments?" They go, "No, we need 3 whole days of continual content." All right, BD, you know it. You never say no, right? You say you can do it, even if you can't do it. Yep. But I knew I could do it because of my time with Vince. So the stuff with Fight is a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And then just this past week at Madison Square Garden for the Crawford Khan fight, I was able to host everything with ESPN and with Top Rank. Got to interview Freddie Roach, and got to interview so many amazing people. And I grew up loving boxing, with my dad. So it's nice for me to take the wrestling boots and turn them into hosting shoes or turn them into baseball cleats. The name Matt Striker has gotten me into so many doors, but I'm Matthew Kay, formerly known as Matt Striker from WWE, and now I'm working in the fantasy baseball industry, and I'm talking about boxing for ESPN and Top Rank Boxing, and I'm on, going to be on MLB Network and XM Radio, and it's nice, and I have wrestling to thank, and this might not be popular. I have Vince McMahon to thank because he took a chance and gave me an opportunity, and you can say what you want about the guy, but he's given a lot of guys opportunity, and we wouldn't be anywhere in wrestling. AEW wouldn't be anywhere. MLW, the Impact, none of it, had it not been for Vince McMahon. So that's not lost on me.
Got 2 points.
No, and I absolutely agree with that. And so what do you think, since, you've seen it all, Crawford Khan, quick 30 seconds, what do you think about that ending of the match?
I mean, listen, it sucks. It really does. I mean, everyone was waiting to see. I mean, for me, it was Khan was going to work off the jab, and I think Crawford was going to catch him with a left hook somewhere at some point. He showed it a little bit early in the first round, but it's just boxing has really taken strides to come back and to be something cool again. And a controversial ending like that, it's
not good for the business. Yeah.
But also might leave you wanting more, because there's some unfinished business there. And now the question is, do they fight again, or does Crawford move on to fight Spence, or what happens? So that, to me, is the thing. If you're intrigued and you want more, you're going to get more.
All right. I have 2 points before we let you go. First one, the name Matt Striker has not gotten me through any doors. I use it all the time, and I get shut out. So I must be using it wrong. Secondly, and I never really like to ask guys about former employees like WWE. When a guy leaves, the last thing they want to do is do an interview where the guy just constantly asks about WWE and nothing about what they've done in the future or not. And you hear some pretty great stories and horror stories about Vince on the mic when you're doing commentary. Do you have any at least funny anecdotes about Vince yelling into your ear that you can send us home with?
So I've been asked this a million times, and
I'm original.
Either A, I wasn't that important, or B, he had other things to do. I can honestly say that I never got shouted at in my ear. I did get passionate instruction, because he's passionate, it's his money, but never shouted, berated, reprimanded, never anything like that. But one time, and I won't say who it was because I'm friends with the guy, I was calling a show with someone, and I could hear Vince tearing him apart through his headset. I'm sitting next to him with a headset on, and I can hear Vince coming through his headset, and I don't know why, I don't know how. I put my hand on the guy's knee, which is weird, and just kind of like rubbed his knee as if to say, hey, man, we're in this together. Like, if you're getting shit on right now because the boss is in a bad mood, it's got nothing to do with your commentary. So I'll let you know that the minute he's done talking to you, I'm right here, and let's get right back into our work. Because, and Peter, you know this, man, on both sides, if you get mentally distracted, especially if you're in the ring, that's when you get hurt. But if you get mentally distracted while you're doing something, production-wise, you're screwed. And I never personally had the experiences of angry Vince, thankfully, but I have seen other people go through it, and it's for a myriad of reasons. Either Vince is in a bad mood, or you might have done something he doesn't want you to do. I've always paid attention to the words people use. Quick. Someone introduces themselves. Peter, you come up to me and go, hey, man, I'm Petey. Nice to meet you. You don't want to be called Peter. You don't want to be called Pete. You've introduced yourself as Petey for a reason. And it's incumbent upon me to listen to that and give it back. Hey, Petey, nice to meet you. If you just listen, people will tell you everything that you need to know.
There we go.
How about that, Peter?
Yeah.
Denny. Pete and Denny show. That's what it is.
Matt, I am super appreciative on this Easter night that you spent at least 35 minutes with us when you didn't have to. Once again, if anybody just... Even you give out a lot of FanDuel advice. So you don't even have to be in a dynasty league or yearly or redraft leagues to get your opinion. But if you play even FanDuel baseball, where can people find you? What can people expect from you? I really want people to reach out to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You can find me at Matt_Striker_. You can find the podcast at Strike Zone Pod. It's on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere. We'll be doing the Fantasy Baseball Hour with Matt Striker. That'll be on Fantasy Sports Network, doing stuff with RotoWire and Razzball. And the thing about DFS, Daily Fantasy, and I almost shouldn't say this because I know the IRS is listening, it's free money. It really is all you need to do. And even if you don't know a lot, just search out on a given day, I'm just making it up, Max Scherzer's pitching against the Mets, and go and see which Mets have historically hit Max Scherzer well. And then see all the games in the daytime, and it's in Washington. Well, who hits well in the day? Who hits well on the road? And just start to build your lineup. And the trick with doing daily fantasy sports, especially in baseball, is called stacking. So I don't want to just take the cleanup hitter on the Mets. And I'm using the Mets as an example. I don't know why. But I want to take the 2, 3, and 4 hitter, because then I can combine all their stats. Because if the number 2 hitter gets on, and the number 3 hitter gets on, the number 4 hitter hits a 3-run homer, I get the home run, I get the RBIs, I get the runs scored, I get all of that. That's how you win in fantasy baseball with regards to daily fantasy. So, those are the places you can find me. Hit me up. I love talking fantasy baseball more than I love talking wrestling these days, to be honest. But you guys, I make an exception because you guys are okay. At least one of you. Cool.
Sorry, Pete, you're out.
You're out.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, guys. Have a good Easter. I appreciate it.
And what only could be called as the backwards addition to the wrestling perspective, where we threw out the interview first, now we're doing the first part of the show last. It's the Wrestling Perspective Podcast. I'm Dennis Farrell, and he's Petey Williams.
Hey, how's she going? See, I got to do that backwards now because we're doing everything backwards today.
That's right. It's Easter as we record this. So, hey, I hope you guys have a great Easter. The kids found all the eggs. I have a 10-year-old, so I can tell you, Pete, you haven't quite hit this yet. But in maybe a year or two, you're going to hide eggs out in the yard, and then summertime you'll find them, and that's the worst.
I sure hope not. No, we had all of my kids come out in the front yard and do that, and one of the squirrels, I want to say, ate up one of the eggs, and they were like, oh, what happened here? But, that's Easter, man. Easter's so fun. I love it, and it's all about the kids, man.
See, now we don't even have to pretend that we don't know what happened in the Matt Striker interview. The Matt Striker interview happened first, so hopefully you enjoyed it. We had a blast with it. Like I said, Striker came up big. We had another guest planned, but he had to back out due to family commitments, and that's all right. It's Easter, so we can't blast him. We had a lot to talk about, which may go into another show. But remember, let me knock the Blue Chew ad out quick. It'll be a quick ad this week, guys. Look, BlueChew.com, use the promo code PERSPECTIVE. It's made with the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis. It's made in America, so it's cheaper. You can get it online, so there's no awkward doctor's visits. And it helps the show out if you use the promo code PERSPECTIVE. Or tell your friends, get your family. We don't care who gets it, why they get it, or what they do with it. We just care you use the promo code. So we knocked that out. I feel good. Pete, we had a bunch of stuff to talk about. I feel like we should cut it down to at least 2 topics real quick, and then we'll send everybody home this Easter. Topic number 1, and I didn't want to talk about this with Stryker because I think this is more of a you and I conversation, but over the weekend or yesterday, depending on when you're listening to this, there was a rumor, and it seems to be somewhat confirmed, but I don't quite believe it, that CM Punk returned to the wrestling ring in a promotion, I believe, somewhere in Wisconsin. I apologize for not knowing the name of the promotion. I watched the video. Have you watched the video?
You know what? I did watch the video just because it was such a big thing about like CM Punk returning, possibly, maybe not, maybe he did. Yes, it was confirmed. It was all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, I got to see this video for myself.
What did you think? Because my thought process, and they have some pictures out there where it shows CM Punk taking a picture with a guy at the mall, and then the same guy or a guy wearing the same sweatshirt with a hood and his hands covered running into the ring and, interrupting a match. I'll be honest. And for my opinion is it's not him. I think CM gave somebody the hoodie to wear, or you can buy two of them. It's not out of the ordinary. It wasn't him. It did not look like him getting in the ring. The go to sleep did not look quite crisp from a CM Punk point of view that I would expect to see from him. I just don't buy that's him.
And that's very valid, what you say. So, I mean, maybe they... Oh, that's a good question. I mean, maybe you're right about what you said. Like, maybe they're like, hey, CM Punk was wearing this earlier on. Oh, you got the same shirt. Oh, let's use this as a gimmick, and everybody will think it's CM Punk. All that kind of stuff. But on the other end, remember, CM Punk hasn't wrestled for how many years? Many years.
Yeah, but come on. Let me ask you this. You were kind of in that position where you hadn't wrestled for many years. The second you got into you're doing practice, right? You rolled around in a ring with a guy. When you hit your first Canadian Destroyer, it felt like your 50th, right?
Yeah, but also I was trying to be the Canadian Destroyer, Petey Williams. I was trying to be that. If this was CM Punk, he's coming out like that old school, like conquistadors, like they always use that in WWE, right? Like a guy under the mask or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they come in the ring like all like slouched over, like the Repo Man or whatever the case. And they come in and they try to not be themselves. He's not going to be the best in the world, CM Punk. He's going to be like a mask guy, kind of sneaking in there, do the pro wrestling move that he does, the go to sleep, and then get out of there like the conquistador. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they were going for. Was it him? I mean, I don't know. Silas Young says it was, and is he trying to play all of us? I mean, that's the question.
Well, tell me a little bit about Young first, the background on him, or for the people listening, because I know him, but I don't know a ton about him.
I mean, I've wrestled him before. I remember actually in Wisconsin, I wrestled him. I think it was called Wicked, Wisconsin. It was like a lot of juggalos were there and stuff, but this is before he had the mustache, and he's super over now, Ring of Honor. This is prior to that. But he's a good dude. I liked having wrestling, good, like, the match I had with him were good and all that kind of stuff. I get along with him very well. And he's got a really good gimmick now. So, but I don't know if he's just trying to like
drum up interest.
Exactly, Dennis. I mean, I don't know if he's just like putting that out there, like, hey, yeah, it was CM Punk. But we don't know. We just don't know.
What you think you know about CM Punk, throw that out the window, because CM Punk does whatever CM Punk wants to do. He doesn't do what's best for his career. He does what he thinks is best for him at that time. So I hear a lot of people going, there's no way CM Punk would show up at an indie show and do something like that. But on the flip side, that's exactly what CM Punk would do is after all these years, this could be his thing where he just kind of shows up and then someone wears a shirt and does it. And sometimes it's him, sometimes it's not. It's almost like the Andy Kaufman, and I wish I could remember the guy that he portrayed as the loudmouth lounge singer. Sometimes it's Andy, sometimes it wasn't. I wonder if this is going to be a thing where now all these people who are wearing CM Punk kind of shirts that he wears show up at shows and disrupts them. And sometimes it might be CM, sometimes it doesn't, but I don't know.
Yeah, he might be the new age Andy Kaufman. And that's the
Right.
thing. I mean, that's what's so great about him because, and what got him so popular in the first place is he doesn't go with he doesn't go with the flow pretty much. Like he goes against the flow, and that's why he's CM Punk, and that's why people still chant his name many years after whenever they're in Chicago. It's because people remember him, people love him. He's CM Punk. I mean, what else can you say about him?
I want to believe it's him, but I also want to believe that he won't come back in wrestling. And not because I don't like him. I think I'm indifferent to CM Punk, where I respect the way he walked away from the industry. I'm not a huge CM Punk fan in general. I think he's phenomenal in the ring. There are just some guys you connect with, some guys you don't. And CM was never quite a guy that I connected with, although Cult of Personality song was one of my favorites before he started using it. And that might be the closest to a huge CM Punk fan I got, was when that music hit and I enjoyed the music. And look, I know it's not popular not to like him. And I wish I could say that I did, but I'm saying that I don't not like him, if that makes sense.
It doesn't, but I get what you're saying.
No, like I'm trying to think of a better way to explain it. CM Punk, I'm indifferent to. I respect the way he left the wrestling industry. You leave on your own terms. I respect that, and I respect. He gets knocked a lot about his MMA stuff. I respect that. Whether you go out and succeed or fail, you went out and you did it on your own terms. And I will always respect for someone who does that. Now, CM Punk's wrestling career, I'm going to admit it. I did not watch much of Ring of Honor back when he was there. I did not follow CM Punk's rise from, riding on the side of John Cena's card at one WrestleMania to being a world champion. When I kind of came back around in the wrestling, it was kind of in the middle around the time he started using Cult of Personality. So I don't have that emotional attachment to him. I think he's a great entertainer. I think he's an amazing wrestler. I just didn't have that emotional attachment to him for me to be like, oh, I love everything CM Punk.
Yeah, and I mean, his rise to fame was pretty... It wasn't quick because he did a lot of things, and then all of a sudden when he did that pipe bomb, it was like, oh,
Game
who
changer.
is this guy? He's great. He's great. He's really, really good on the mic. Like, that's the thing. And I think that's one thing that maybe we're missing in wrestling nowadays. Like, wrestling right now is all these guys doing these awesome matches and all that kind of stuff, which is great. It is great. Don't get me wrong. But there's nobody that really can like grab the mic like CM Punk can and just talk and get the fans connected that way. I mean, I don't know anybody else that can actually do that right now at the level he was doing it.
I'll ask you this, and I'm not sure if I have an opinion. CM Punk, Chris Jericho, who would be the biggest signing for AEW? Let's say they land CM Punk and they have Chris Jericho. Who's the biggest talent out of the two of them at this point in time? Not overall, but at this point in time.
I would say CM Punk. Just because Jericho, like, he just did New Japan stuff. So the only reason why is that CM Punk hasn't done anything wrestling-wise since he left WWE. Jericho has. He went to New Japan and did that. I think CM Punk would be the bigger signing. That's just my opinion.
All right. And I got to, we talked a little while ago on a few episodes about how I sat in as an extra for a Tessa Blanchard promo skit.
Yes. I'm so excited to see that.
It came off phenomenal. They have it posted online now. I believe it made the show, although I didn't make the show. I'm a little brokenhearted.
Oh.
Listen, I wish I knew someone who knew Scott D'Amore, right? And who could just even get me a part where I got beat up or just pass through something, because... And I'm going to search high and low for someone that's friends enough with Scott D'Amore. because I really
probably not me.
No, God, no. You don't even know him, do you?
No, I don't know.
Okay. But I will say this. Sitting there filming it, I thought it was great. Watching it after, even though there's like one spot at the very beginning, you can see a blurry picture of my face. So look for it out there, guys, when you watch it.
Yeah.
It might have been, so far, vignette, promo, whatever you want to call it, it was the segment of the year for me. Because it might have been one of the best segments in all of wrestling this year. It was phenomenal. And I'm not saying that to be a kiss butt. I'm not saying it because I was in the room. But the theory, the thought out process of it, where, if you're watching Impact right now, they're going towards a Tessa Blanchard, Gil Kim match at one of the pay-per-views coming up, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So, and I didn't know this, and color me dumb, but Gil Kim is married to Robert Irvine, who does, I believe it's like Restaurant Impossible or something like that on the Cooking Network. And since it's out now, I'm going to tell you the premise of the promo is she shows up to one of his 5-star restaurants, either looking for Gil or looking for him. And that's all I'll say. And it's phenomenal. From the start of the segment to the end of the segment, it was one of the best segments I've seen all year long.
Yeah, and I mean, so Tessa, I don't know if it was because of Tessa or whatever, but Tessa is great. The writing team, I mean, you could say what you will about Impact Wrestling, but the writing team is really trying really hard, and I think they're doing... I really think they're doing a great job. Dennis, I'm sorry that you didn't get, the airtime that you wanted. But remember when you played that bartender?
I did, for the online skit.
Yeah. Oh, it was. Who was that with?
That
Stone
was with
Rockwell?
Stone Rockwell.
Okay. But you know what? Your time will come. And it's good that they're just thinking enough. Hey, can you be an extra? Like, they know that you'll do the part. I mean,
I had no choice, but yes.
He had no choice.
They had no choice.
Yeah.
The funny story was, we're going to the show. I'm like, and I had a big beard at this point, and I'm like, Pete, I think I'm going to shave it just in case there's a chance that they use me. And you're like, yeah, I think that's a smart idea. So it was kind of fun. It was foreshadowing of what happened, and by far segment of the year so far for Impact, maybe in all of wrestling. And I'm not saying that. And look, I'm a guy. And listen, truth be told, I'm a guy on the show where I've been a little critical at times at some of the stuff you put out. Not you personally, PD, but Impact overall. And I'm also one of the guys that gives the compliments where they're deserved. And this is one of those, you hit 2 grand slams in 1 inning. That's how great this was.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed the segment. I just really wish you were a part of it, Dennis. I mean, I don't know. Okay,
I do too.
Next time we're in the area, we have to get you as part of I don't know. You have to be the focal point of the segment. What do you think?
I would. No, PD. I've not been.
No. You don't want to do that.
No,
okay.
no.
All right. I didn't think so. I didn't think you would.
Unfortunately, I won't be able to make this set of tapings coming up. Is it a pay-per-view or a set of tapings?
It is a pay-per-view. We have Rebellion coming up on April 28th. It's at the Rebelplex. Remember, you were there.
Many times.
So that's a good venue. Last 2018 Slammiversary was there. I wasn't supposed to be on the show, but with Rich Swann getting the concussion and stuff, they put me in last minute. And then we have the TV tapings the Monday right after, and then right from there, Friday and Saturday will be in Philadelphia. Where in Philadelphia? 2300 Arena, I believe.
Okay.
That's the ECW arena. So I think that's what we're doing, and that's what we have coming up.
And I have a lot of fan questions we're not going to get to this week, and I totally apologize, guys. We'll
get them.
Yeah, we had Matt Stryker. We have Easter Sunday night, so things kind of went cattywampus on us. You like my new word, by the way?
I don't even know what that means, but that
Sideways.
probably means something. Yeah, sideways. Things went sideways, yeah.
But I'll say this. And we have one of our fans who has been amazing, right? And I think we've talked about him on a few shows. His name's Robert McNeely. He's so bad, Pete. Not he's so bad, but he so badly wants to buy you and I a drink. And so I told him, one day we'll make it out there. We're both busy. I can't nail down the exact date, but as a thank you for at least the gesture of wanting to buy us a beer, we'll give him and his little brewery a shout out. If you are in the Michigan area and you're looking for a place to go to get a beer, I hear the Looking Glass Brewery in DeWitt is one of the best places to go. So,
wait, he works at Looking Glass?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, we got to go there.
Oh, now you want to go there?
Oh, I didn't know he worked at Looking Glass.
Yes.
All right. Anyways, go on.
So I told him, as at least a thank you for the gesture, I would give him and his brewery a shout out. He works there. Very good guy, devoted listener. He listens every week. And now it sounds like you're more interested in going. So hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, when you come out to my house, we're probably almost there.
Yeah, like what, 10 minutes away?
I don't know where. You know what? Here's what I'm going to do. And probably should have been done off air, but I'm going to do this. Let me pull up my Waze, and I will tell you. It's
close.
I'm going to tell you how far. Looking Glass
Brewery.
Yep. It's only 40 miles away from me.
Oh, only 40 miles. I think it's closer to me than you.
It might be. It's an hour for me, and you're going 23 north. So to 75 north, over to 69. So
we're at 69 there. Okay.
Yeah. So I think this is one of those we should make this happen. We have a burger, have a couple free beers. He's made it very clear he's willing to get us drunk.
Yeah, a couple of Voodoo Rangers.
Yay! Does Looking Glass do Voodoo, or is that a different brewery?
They got to do it.
Okay. All right. Well, Pete, good show. We gave the fans what they want, a little bit of banter, Easter cheer. Look, I know your Easter's probably sucked until now and you get to hear us, so we're glad we could help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Remember, Pete, what do you have to promote?
Nothing much. Just, our pay-per-view coming up on Impact. It's called Rebellion at the Rebel Complex. That's April 28th. Please watch that. And we have TV tapings coming up, and as well as, I don't know. I don't know where we're filming. We film so much in advance. I have no idea where we're at, but Philadelphia coming up, and more shows to be determined.
All right. And if you're listening to this for the first time, we thank you. Wrestling Perspective. You go to WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. There are all kinds of links, or you can listen from the webpage there. You can go to Stitcher, iTunes, any place that has podcasts, that's where you can get Wrestling Perspective. You can also listen to Wrestling Perspective Radio on SB Nation, heard on 100 radio stations. Facebook, if you're on Facebook, go to Wrestling Perspective Podcast Facebook page. Like it, be part of the banter in the chat. We would love to have you guys over there. Petey, you're on Twitter at IPDWilliams.
IPDWilliams. And as well as Instagram at IPDWilliams as well.
Hey, you know what? I saw you, by the way, on the way out the door here, retweet a video of a guy giving his young kid, or the young kid giving the dad a Canadian destroyer.
Yes. I think it said something like, you always remember, you never forget your first Canadian destroyer. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, that's kind of true. It really is. That hits home for me.
Can you critique that Canadian destroyer for a second?
For a 5-year-old kid, it was great, like 5 stars or whatever. I want to do that to my kids now.
Oh, I'm not so sure that's going to work out.
No, it probably won't. But I want to still do it. So
there you go. All right, I guess the next podcast we do, we're gonna have to do it from a hotel room, huh?
Why?
Because I'm not going to the tapings this weekend.
Oh yeah. Well, then we'll definitely have to do it from a hotel room.
Because I gotta tell you, my stupid kid, and I mean that sarcastically. My wife is going to 80s Fest this weekend, so I'm home with the kid.
Oh, okay.
And I would have totally had someone watch her for the weekend, but it's her very first Pinewood Derby thing she has going on with Girl Scouts versus Boy Scouts. And
you can't miss that.
I can't miss that. And that's...
Yeah, no, that's understandable.
Look, if any other thing going on, I would have locked her in a closet by herself with one of those, automatic food dispensing things. And she would have been all right.
Yep.
And I would have gone. She's 10. I would have maybe duct taped her to the couch next to the PlayStation and hit the road. But
yeah, why not? I mean, she's got all the video games and stuff like that. She'd be totally fine.
Yeah.
She knows how to use the fridge and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we had to bump Scott Demore this week. He couldn't. We were too packed to have him on the show, so we bumped him.
Yeah. We'll get him next time.
We'll try to book him next week. But Pete, happy Easter, my friend, and
happy Easter to you too.
And I will talk to you later.
All right.